first responsibility of leadership is to define reality. Last responsibility of leadership is to say thank you in between the leaders of servant. I think that we owe a great deal of thanks to David Howell and the great work he's doing at MSOE. Thank Jerome, before you leave, please thank Jerome and the wonderful work that he's doing in the community. Sarah, thank you for your wonderful presentation. Mark, thank you for your testimony and goodness here this morning. Now, as we began, in terms of what we want to look at, how to better serve students, and I think that begins, how do we begin to put them first within the university structure. Opportunity to refocus. The conversation seems to me to be very focused. I like what Sarah had to say about deliberate and intentional leads to more focused action. I hope you had some time to think about some of the ideas, network, reinforce, inspire, passionate, and how to implement the servant leadership model. At our tables, I think we gave each other examples as to how we might want to do that. Finally, there was a notion of building trust, and then how do other cultures view servant leadership. If I could share two final thoughts. One, I had a chance to hear a man last week that really impacted me. I've heard a lot of speakers, but Joe Ehrman out of Baltimore, former defensive lineman for the Colts, but people are disappointed because he didn't speak about pro football. He spoke about leadership, he spoke about coaching, he spoke about humanity. And he said one of his favorite leaders is Moses. And he said Moses was able to lead 2 million people out of oppression where they had lived under oppression for 430 years. And he said he did 3 things, and I think these are really key to what we've been talking about today. One, he had to teach the people to critique the culture. Critique the culture that we live in. That's what Mark was able to do. Critique the culture and say, listen, it's no longer working to be a tough guy. Thank God that the public has responded to Richie Incognito and said, we will not tolerate this any longer. We will not tolerate language that's going to debase other human beings. You have to be able to critique the culture. That takes courage. Second, what Moses was able to do, he had to help the people face their own pain. What happens in terms of empathy? Each of us has to face our own pain. The pain of other people wakes up the pain in our own lives. And that's why it's so difficult, because sometimes it just draws us in, that deep level of compassion. And third, what had happened, Moses had to help the people create a new narrative as to who they could be. That's the story of Jeff. That's the story of the new prophet, to create a new story of who we might be. And from that we get Genesis that says everybody who's created is good. Little promo just to show you in terms of how we're trying to practice this lacrosse. We have a whole project going on in lacrosse in terms of becoming a compassionate community. In lacrosse public schools, instead of focusing on bullying, because I think it's the wrong place to focus, whatever you focus on, you get more of. You keep talking about bullying, what do you recognize? More bullying. So instead what we're doing, we're talking about compassion. And every student in lacrosse school district is going to paint a picture of compassion, and then we're going to have a public display. 6,000 6x6 tiles will be distributed for the whole community to see what our children think about compassion. Now what's happening, companies, organizations, institutions are all wanting to participate. So we're trying to have this conversation about compassionate, as a compassionate city. Whatever we pay attention to, we get more of. And I think that's very important. And then finally, just leave you with this little story. Some of you come over to the west coast of Wisconsin, over to La Crosse, you come from the big cities, and of course, you're used to driving fast. And the guy was driving on the country roads not far from La Crosse, and the car went off, went in a ditch. He's stuck, so he went up and he knocked on the door of a farmer, and the farmer said, yeah. He says, could you get your tractor and pull me out? The guy said, I don't have a tractor. All I have is a plow horse. All right, so he comes down and he hooks up his plow horse to the car and says, come on now, big buddy. Come on now, big buddy. Pull, big buddy. Pull, big buddy. Come on now, sugar. Come on, she like girl. Pull. Come on now, big buddy. And the horse strains and pulls the car out of the ditch. The gentleman goes up and says, well, thanks so much. But you tell me something. You have one horse and you called the horse by 3 different names. Why'd you do that? I said, well, my horse is blind. If he thought he was the only one, never got you out. Why is it important for us to get together? Because we're all pulling together. We're all pulling together. Thanks so very much.